Hi there, Fr.Francis McKee. I'd like to do a little series on God is love. Many people have difficulty believing in the Lord, and so I'm going to give a little series on that. You're welcome to follow twice a week. My theme today is this: all lives matter. We hear it said constantly in the news these days for very good reasons, because there's been enormous amount of violence and we see the signs everywhere. I saw it this morning when I went jogging on somebody's window. Black lives matter. Well, of course they do. But so do all lives, I would think. I think white lives matter. I think Chinese, Asian lives matter. I think indigenous lives matter. I think children's lives matter. I think senior citizens' lives matter. I think those who are mentally challenged matter. I understand what Black Lives Matter is about. It's trying to, of course, touch a very sensitive issue right now around racism that exists in some certain circles. But all lives matter, and the reason all lives matter is because God is love. God's very nature is love. In John's first letter, chapter 4, John's first letter, he said, "Let us love one another because love is born of God. Everyone who loves is begotten by God and knows God. Whoever is without love does not know God, for God is love." It's because of God's immense kindness, immense humility, because of God's subtending love that we exist, and our lives matter because of his love. If we eliminate God from the equation, if we eliminate the Lord from the equation, then suddenly we're not sure why any life matters, really. You think about that. If you eliminate God out of the picture and your mind is completely indifferent to God, that you do not believe in God, you don't love the Lord, then what's the basis of the dignity of human life? Is it because of the theory of Darwin, of the survival of the fittest, that we're the conclusion of an evolution of centuries and millennia of process of evolution? Well, actually, according to Darwin's theory, actually human life is not sacred, if you think about it. His basic theory was survival of the fittest. Therefore, anybody who's weak, an unborn child, anybody who's weak, an elderly person who's got Alzheimer's, anybody who's weak, who's mentally challenged, anybody who's weak because of their race or color, is bound to lose in the battle of the survival of the fittest, and so they don't have great dignity in Darwin's theory. So what's the basis of the sacredness of human life? Well, I try to think about that. Somebody who does not love the Lord or know the Lord, do they respect human life? Of course they do. But why? What is the philosophical basis of that? Because human beings happen to be intelligent? Well, if we just live and die, intelligence doesn't give a spectacular dignity to us. Does that mean, for example, that mentally challenged people don't have any dignity? I'm not sure we can find a basis for the sacredness and dignity of the human person if it's not grounded in something which is eternal, which is that beautiful, amazing presence of God. Now you think about that. Now if you can prove me wrong, please do. I think that for many individuals in our society who have no love for the Lord and no concern about the Lord, who don't meditate and worship every day, who don't make the God the center of their life and surrender their life to the Lord each day, and say, I don't need that in order to recognize the dignity of the human person, and who see life as sacred, I suspect that the root of the understanding of the sacredness of life is rooted in relationships. Why do I not just want to eliminate my life? Well, because I'm in relationship with my parents, with my brothers and sisters on the left, like to laugh with them and have beers and sing with them and play music and play cards. It's because we're in a relationship. But if there's no relationship, and I live isolated and there's no connection with anything larger, where is the dignity of the human person? I think that all lives matter. I think Black lives matter. I think LGBTQ plus lives matter. I think Indigenous people's lives matter. I think Asian lives matter. I think white lives matter. I think Irish lives matter. I think in the heart of the Lord, all lives matter. Now, of course, all human beings are called to repent. Regardless of who you are, we need to change. We need to be metamorphosed in our interior life to see others through the eyes of God. So why do all lives matter, including, for example, the unborn children, those who are elderly and have Alzheimer's and seem to be useless? Where is the root of the dignity that all lives matter? I'm not sure we can see any other basis, really, in its philosophical and theological foundation than the love for the Lord who has given us life and given us a tremendous dignity. That's not to say that people who are non-believers don't have a respect for life. Of course they do. Of course they do. I'm not saying that. What I'm talking about here is about philosophical foundations. What is the basis for the sacredness of life? I'm not too sure what it is. If life is just here today, gone tomorrow, and we're strictly a product of evolutionary development, and we simply return to dust and become tomorrow a tree. God is love, and all those who love are born of God. Do Black lives matter? Of course they do. Lord, mercy. How can we even think something like that? Do white lives matter? Of course they do. Do yellow lives, Asian lives? Of course they do. All human life is sacred to the Lord who loves us. The basis of the dignity of the human person. And if we think about that, it's the fact that we're born in the heart of God. At the moment of our conception, God has infused a divine soul in us and planted in us not just a divine soul, but an infused hunger for something's missing. That's why we spend most of our lives, all of our lives, with a gnawing sense of loneliness. We all do. Why? Because we're made for God. He's the source of our being. And so all lives matter. The unborn matter. The elderly matter. Why? Because God is humble. God is gentle. God infuses life into us. And he says, learn to love one another. When you no longer love the Lord, it is very difficult for us to learn to love one another. It all comes back down to two very basic commandments. Love the Lord, surrender your whole life to him. And as a result of that, give your life for others, because all lives matter. I'm going to continue this little series. If you want to spread them with your friends, you're welcome to do that. And the next couple of talks I'm going to give will be around how do we know God exists? Many people have asked me that, so I'd like to take a shot at trying to make some sense of that. The Lord bless you today. Bye-bye then.